stood in the middle of the largest junkyard he had ever seen. Broken starships stretched out in every direction, piled on top of each other like forgotten toys. Some were small, no bigger than a bus. Others were massive, bigger than entire buildings back home. All of them were dead. All of them were useless. He wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his scanner again. Still nothing. He had been searching for 3 days now, looking for parts that could save his colony. New Sol colony was dying. Their main ship had been hit by meteors 2 months ago and the life support systems were failing. Without repairs, 5,000 people would have to evacuate. They would lose everything. Anything walked up behind him, her boots crunching on metal debris. She looked tired. They both were. Nothing we can use, said. He kicked a broken engine part. Everything here is either too damaged or too expensive. Wants triple the normal price for anything that still works. Sighed. She was a scientist, not an engineer, but she understood their situation. Maybe we should just buy what we can afford and hope it's enough. Shook his head. He knew that wouldn't work. They needed something big, something that could provide power and spare parts for years, something that everyone else had overlooked. That's when he saw it. Behind a mountain of scrap metal, half buried under the wreckage of 3 other ships, was a massive hull. It was dark gray, almost black, and covered in rust and strange symbols. The design was unlike anything had seen before. It wasn't human, that was certain. But it wasn't like the other alien ships either. This one looked ancient. What is that? Pointed. Followed his gaze. Her eyes went wide. That's huge. Why is it just sitting there? They walked toward it, climbing over debris and broken machinery. Up close, the ship was even more impressive. It had to be at least 300 meters long. The hull was thick, designed for war. Could see what looked like weapon ports, shield generators, and massive engine housings. This had been a warship once. But it was also a wreck. The hull was cracked in several places. Burn marks covered the surface. One entire section looked like it had been melted by something incredibly hot. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had died a violent death. Don't even think about it. The voice made them both jump, had appeared behind them, moving silently on his 4 legs. He was an alien with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the light in strange ways. That ship is cursed. Cursed raised an eyebrow. I don't believe in curses. Made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Believe what you want, human. That is a dreadnought. The went extinct 300 years ago. That ship has been here for 50 years, and in that time, 17 different species have tried to salvage it. All of them failed. Why? Asked. The power core is dead. The navigation systems are completely fried. The hull is full of holes. The technology is so old that nothing interfaces with it properly. Counted the problems on his fingers. It's worthless. Just a giant piece of metal taking up space in my yard. Walked closer to the ship, studying it. His mind was already working, analyzing what he saw. Yes, it was damaged. Yes, it was old, but the design was beautiful, elegant, efficient. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. How much? He asked. His compound eyes focused on him. You can't be serious. How much for the whole ship? The alien made that clicking sound again. You humans are barely past chemical rockets, and you think you can repair a warship. Species far more advanced than you have tried and failed. I didn't ask for your opinion, said calmly. I asked for a price. Studied him for a long moment. Then he named a figure. It was barely more than scrap metal prices. Tried not to show his surprise. The alien really did think this ship was worthless. Grabbed his arm. We can't. We need parts we can actually use. This is the part we can use, said. All of it. But, trust me. Looked at the massive wreck, then back at the ship. Finally she nodded. Okay, I trust you. They paid that afternoon. The alien made them sign dozens of documents, all of them stating that he held no responsibility for the ship's condition or functionality. He seemed almost happy, like he was getting rid of a problem. Other aliens in the junkyard laughed when they heard what it bought. A merchant pointed at them and said something to his friends. They all laughed. A tall, reptilian alien shook his head in disbelief. Even the junkyard workers, creatures from a dozen different species, stopped to stare and whisper. "Look at the humans," one said. "They think they're engineers." "That ship has defeated better species than them," another replied. Ignored them all. He had dealt with doubt his whole life. Growing up on Earth, he had been told he couldn't become a starship engineer. Humans were too new to space, people said. They didn't understand the technology. When he moved to New Sol Colony, he had been told he couldn't maintain their systems. He proved them wrong every time. He would prove them wrong again. That evening and stood at the ship's main airlock. It took them an hour just to get the door open. The systems were so old that their tools barely worked on them. When the door finally opened, stale air rushed out. It smelled like metal and age. Inside, the ship was dark. Their flashlights cut through the shadows, revealing corridors that hadn't seen light in centuries. Everything was coated in dust. Wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. The walls were covered in that strange writing, symbols that neither of them could read. They made their way to the engineering bay. It was enormous, 3 stories tall, filled with machinery that didn't recognize. The power core sat in the center, a massive sphere covered in conduits and cooling systems. It was completely dead, no light, no sound, no energy. Walked to a console and tried to activate it. Nothing happened. I think was right, this might be too far gone. But was studying the power core, his engineer's mind already working through the problems. He moved around it slowly, examining every connection, every system. Then he stopped. His eyes went wide. "What is it?" asked. "This power core," said slowly. "It's not just broken, it's incomplete." "What do you mean?" "Look at these connections. Look at how the systems are arranged." He pointed to several places where conduits ended in nothing, where systems were clearly missing parts. "The never finished building this ship. That's why it failed. That's why no one could repair it. They've all been trying to fix something that was never whole to begin with." Walked over and looked at what he was pointing at. She was a biologist, not an engineer, but she could see what he meant. "So it can't be repaired." Smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in days. "It can't be repaired using technology, but maybe we don't need to use technology. Maybe we can finish what they started, but finish it our way. With human technology." "With human technology," confirmed. "They couldn't finish it with what they had, but maybe we can finish it with what we have." Looked around at the massive, dead ship. Then she looked at. He had that look in his eyes, the same look he always got when he was about to do something impossible. "This is crazy," she said. "Probably. It's going to take months. At least. Everyone is going to think we're idiots." Grinned, "Let them." Shook her head, but she was smiling too. "Okay, let's build a starship." 3 months had passed since bought the ship. He had named it the Wanderer, after an old Earth poem about travelers and hope. Now it floated in orbit above the junkyard, held in place by temporary thrusters that had installed himself. From the outside, the Wanderer still looked like a wreck. The hull was still rusty, still covered in 300 years of damage. But inside, things were different. Inside, the ship was coming alive. Stood in the engineering bay, his hands covered in grease and his eyes red from lack of sleep. He had just finished connecting the 3rd fusion reactor to the power distribution network. Around him, dozens of cables ran in every direction, connecting human technology to alien systems in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. "That's it," he said to himself. "That should do it." He pressed a button on his control panel. Deep inside the ship, the fusion reactors hummed to life. Power flowed through cables, through converters, through systems that had been dead for centuries. Lights flickered on throughout the engineering bay. Old machines began to wake up, making sounds they hadn't made in 300 years. Allowed himself a small smile. Progress. You're going to kill yourself working like this. Entered the bay carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one too. When was the last time you slept? I slept yesterday, said, taking the coffee gratefully. For 3 hours, that doesn't count. Looked around at all the work he had done. Although I have to admit this is impressive, the power core is actually generating energy. Not the original power core, explained. That would need 0-point energy generation, which is way beyond what we can do. Instead, I installed 6 fusion reactors in a network configuration. They're cruder than what the designed, but they produce enough power to run the basic systems. Walked over to one of the connections and studied it. This shouldn't work. Human power systems and distribution networks use completely different energy frequencies. They do, agreed. That's why I built frequency converters. See these boxes? They take our power output and convert it into something the alien systems can use. It's inefficient, but it works. Shook her head in amazement. She had watched work for 3 months now, and every day he did something that seemed impossible. He didn't just repair the ship, he reimagined it. I made progress too, said, come see. She led him to another section of the ship, what looked like a laboratory she had set up. On a table lay several pieces of the ship's hull material. Some of them were glowing with a faint green light. What am I looking at? Asked. Living metal, said. They didn't just build their ships out of regular metal. They used biological compounds that could repair themselves. But it all died centuries ago when the power went out. She picked up one of the glowing pieces. I've been studying the composition. It's part metal, part organic tissue. I thought if I could understand how it worked, maybe I could grow new samples. So I took some bacteria from Earth, modified them with compounds I found in the ship's medical bay, and introduced them to the hull material. And it worked. It worked, confirmed. The bacteria colonized the metal and began repairing the microscopic damage. It's slow, but it's working. Give me a few more months and I can coat the entire hull with this. The ship will be able to heal itself from small damage. Looked at the glowing metal in wonder. You're a genius. I learned from watching you, she said. You showed me that we don't need to do things the alien way. We can do them the human way. A loud crash from outside interrupted them. They rushed to the window and saw standing in the corridor, his 4 arms gesturing wildly. Behind him were several other aliens, all of them staring at the lights that now illuminated the Wanderer's interior. Impossible, shouted. The power systems were completely destroyed. How did you? I didn't repair them, said calmly. I replaced them. The aliens pushed past to see for themselves. They examined the fusion reactors, the frequency converters, the way human cables were spliced into alien conduits. One of them, a tall blue creature with 6 fingers, ran his hands over a connection point. This is crude, the alien said. Inefficient, wasteful. But it works, replied. The alien had no response to that. Word spread quickly through the junkyard. The dead ship was alive. The impossible had happened. More aliens came to see, some curious, some skeptical, some angry. A representative from the Galactic Trade Consortium arrived within a week. I am authorized to offer you 2 million credits for this vessel, the representative said. He was humanoid, with gray skin and 3 eyes. No, said simply. 4 million. No. 10 million, that's our final offer. Not interested. The representative left frustrated, watched him go and felt a small sense of satisfaction. They wanted his ship because they knew it was valuable, but they would never understand why it was valuable. They saw a ship with human parts, saw something else entirely. He saw a bridge between 2 kinds of thinking, 2 approaches to engineering. He saw possibility. That evening someone else arrived. His name was Minu and he was oldest friend. They had grown up together on Earth, studied engineering together, dreamed of the stars together. When moved to New Sol Colony, Minyu had stayed behind. Now he was here, carrying a large bag and wearing a huge smile. "I heard you bought a junk ship and actually got it working," Minyu said. "I had to see for myself." They hugged like brothers, showed him everything, explaining each system, each modification, each impossible solution. Minyu listened with wide eyes, occasionally asking questions, frequently shaking his head in disbelief. "You always were crazy," Minyu said. "Remember when you built a water recycler out of old air filters and a coffee maker?" "That worked too," pointed out. "It did," Minyu's smile faded. "I have news from the colony, it's not good." Felt his stomach tighten. How bad? "The life support is failing faster than expected. Says we have 6 months, maybe less. If this ship isn't ready by then, the colony will have to evacuate." 6 months. Had hoped for more time, but he would work with what he had. He always did. "Then I need your help," said. "I can't do this alone." "That's why I'm here," Minyu replied. "Put me to work." The next 4 months were brutal, and Minyu worked around the clock, sleeping in shifts, eating whenever they remembered to. They scavenged parts from other wrecks in the junkyard. They built tools from scratch when the tools they had didn't work. They solved 1,000 problems, and each solution created 2 new problems. The propulsion system took a month to figure out. The engines used gravitational manipulation, something humans hadn't mastered, but realized he could use human ion drives in combination with the alien gravity generators. It wouldn't be as fast as a pure system, but it would move the ship. The weapons were another challenge. They were intact but had no power. Connected them to his fusion network, but the power draw was enormous. He had to build capacitors to store energy between shots. Minyu designed the system, using principles from Earth power grids applied to alien technology. The shields were the biggest surprise. When activated them for the first time, they created a barrier so strong that his sensors couldn't measure it properly. Somehow, the combination of human power generation and shield technology had created something more powerful than either system alone. Living metal was spreading across the hull now, glowing faintly in the darkness of space. The ship was healing itself, closing cracks, smoothing over damage. It was beautiful to watch. On the 120th day since they bought the ship, initiated the final power sequence. Every system came online at once. The engines hummed with power. The shields formed a shimmering barrier around the hull. The weapons arrays charged and locked into position. The navigation computers, running on human software interfaced with alien sensors, displayed a perfect map of the surrounding space. The Wanderer was alive. Stood on the bridge which they had cleaned and repaired over the past month. It still looked strange, with human displays mounted next to alien consoles, with chairs they had brought from Earth sitting in front of control panels that were 300 years old. But it worked. All of it worked. "Take us up," said quietly. Minyu, sitting at the pilot's station, pressed a series of buttons. The engines engaged. The Wanderer lifted away from the junkyard, rising into open space for the first time in 3 centuries. Below them and dozens of other aliens watched in stunned silence. The dead ship was flying. The cursed ship was alive. The humans had done the impossible. Looked at his reflection in the window. He looked exhausted, older than his 32 years, but he was smiling. "Set course for New Sol Colony," he said. "Let's go home." The Wanderer emerged from hyperspace above New Sol Colony, and 5,000 people stopped what they were doing to stare at the sky. The ship hung there in orbit, massive and looking like something from a nightmare. But it was their nightmare. It was their salvation. Stood on the bridge, looking down at the colony through the... He could see the domed habitats, the farms under transparent shields, the mining facilities on the planet's 3 moons. Home. "They're hailing us," said from the communications station. "It's..." The switch to Show's face. She was 45 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of worry. As the colony administrator, she carried the weight of 5,000 lives on her shoulders. Now she was staring at the Wanderer with an expression couldn't quite read. She said slowly, "When you said you found a ship, I thought you meant something small, something we could strip for parts." "I found something better," replied. "I can see that." Eyes moved across her own displays, reading the scanner data. "According to our sensors, that thing has more power output than our entire colony grid. The weapons. What exactly are you flying?" "It's complicated. Can we dock? I need to show you something." Over the next 3 days, gave a complete tour of the Wanderer. He showed her the hybrid power systems, the living metal hull, the weapons arrays, the shields. He explained every modification, every innovation, every impossible solution that made the ship work. Listened to everything without speaking. When the tour was finished, she sat down in the captain's chair and looked around the bridge. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "I know." "No, I don't think you do," turned to face him. "Do you understand what you've built here? This isn't just a ship. This is a weapon that rivals what the major powers have. Once the galaxy finds out that humans have this, everything will change. We'll have allies and enemies we never had before. We'll have opportunities and dangers we never imagined." "I just wanted to save the colony," said. "And you have, but you've also made us players in a game we weren't ready for," stood up. "We need to be smart about this, very smart." She was right, but didn't realize how right until 2 weeks later. The pirates came at night, if you could call it night in space. The Wanderer was in orbit, serving as a supply transport and defense platform for the colony. Was asleep in his quarters when the alarms woke him. "We have contacts," Minu's voice came over the intercom. 15 ships approaching fast. They're not broadcasting any identification." Was on the bridge in under a minute, still pulling on his uniform. They showed the approaching vessels. They were small, fast, and heavily armed. Pirates. They came to the colonies sometimes, demanding supplies or credits. Usually, colonies paid them off. It was easier than fighting. But the Wanderer changed the math. "They're hailing us," said. A face appeared on the. It belonged to something that might have been reptilian once, but was now more machine than organic. One eye was replaced with a glowing red sensor. Half its skull was metal. "This is captain of the Free Raider fleet," the thing said. "You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender your cargo." Looked at Minu, then at. They both nodded. They had talked about this possibility. "No," said simply. His remaining organic eye widened slightly. "No. We're not surrendering anything. Leave now or we'll make you leave." The pirate captain made a sound that might have been laughter. "You're one ship. We are 15. We have been raiding colonies for 20 years. What makes you think you can stop us?" "Try me and find out." His expression changed. The laughter was gone. "So be it, destroy them." The pirate fleet attacked. 15 ships opened fire at once, filling space with energy weapons and missiles. It was an overwhelming assault, the kind that would have destroyed any colony ship in seconds. But the Wanderer wasn't a colony ship. The shields activated automatically, forming a barrier of energy around the hull. The pirate weapons hit the shields and simply stopped, their energy dispersing harmlessly. Felt the ship shudder slightly from the impact, but the shield integrity barely dropped at all. "Return fire," ordered. "Target their engines. I don't want to kill anyone if we don't have to." Minu targeted the nearest pirate ship and fired. The Wanderer's main cannon charged and released a bolt of blue energy. It crossed the space between them in less than a second and struck the pirate vessel directly in its engine housing. The result shocked everyone, including the pirate ship didn't just lose its engines. The entire rear half of the vessel exploded. What was left spun out of control, venting atmosphere and debris. "I thought you said target the engines," said quietly. I did, Minyu replied, his voice shaking. That was the lowest power setting. Stared at the damaged ship. He had known the Wanderer was powerful, but this was beyond what he had expected. The combination of human power generation and weapons technology had created something devastating. The pirate fleet hesitated. They had come expecting an easy target. Instead, they had found something that destroyed one of their ships with a single shot. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel, screamed. Bring it down. The remaining 14 ships attacked together, focusing all their weapons on the Wanderer. The shields flared bright as they absorbed the energy. Watch the shield integrity numbers on his display. They dropped by 2%. Minyu said calmly, continue firing, disable them all. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration. The Wanderer moved through the pirate fleet like a shark through a school of fish. Each shot from its weapons crippled a ship. The pirates tried everything, ramming, boarding attempts, coordinated strikes, but nothing worked. The shields held. The weapons were too powerful. The ship was too fast. Within 10 minutes, 12 pirate vessels were disabled and drifting. 2 had fled. The flagship ship was trying to escape when targeted it. One shot to the engines and it was dead in space like the others. Colony ships are inbound to collect the survivors, reported. Says we should expect the authorities to want a full report. Nodded, but he was thinking about what it said. Everything would change. She was right. The news spread across the galaxy faster than the Wanderer could travel. Humans had a warship. Humans had defeated pirates without taking a single hit. Humans had technology that could rival the major powers. Within a month, the Galactic Council demanded that appear before them. The Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a central government, a meeting place where hundreds of species tried to work together. Humans had never been invited before. They were too new, too primitive, too insignificant. Not anymore. And traveled to the Council world, leaving Minyu in command of the Wanderer. The planet was beautiful, with towers that reached into the clouds and gardens that covered entire continents. The council chamber itself was enormous, a circular room with seats for representatives from 200 different species. Stood in the center of the circle, feeling very small and very human. Around him, aliens of every shape and size stared down at him. Some looked curious, some looked hostile, all of them looked interested. A tall, thin being with blue skin and 4 arms stood up. I am Council Speaker. Of the humans, you stand before this council to explain how your species came into possession of advanced military technology. The vessel you pilot is confirmed to be of origin, a civilization that possessed technology far beyond current galactic standards. How did humans acquire this ship? I bought it, said simply. From a junkyard, it was broken, I fixed it. Murmurs ran through the council. Someone laughed, held up a hand for silence. You fixed it. You, a human, repaired a dreadnought. Yes. 17 other species tried to repair that same vessel over 50 years. All of them failed. Species with technology far superior to human capabilities. And yet you succeeded where they failed. How? Took a breath. They tried to repair it using the same kind of thinking that broke it. They tried to restore systems with technology, but those systems were incomplete. The ship was never finished, so I finished it differently. I used human technology. I combined what the built with what humans can build. I made something new. Stood up beside him. She had brought data files, technical specifications, examples of their work. If I may, Council Speaker, I can demonstrate. That won't be necessary, a new voice interrupted. It was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. A massive reptilian creature stood up, easily 3 meters tall, covered in scales that looked like armor. I am war leader of the Empire. I do not believe humans created this technology. I believe they stole it. I believe they are hiding something. Turn to face the reptilian. Believe what you want. I'm telling you the truth. Then prove it, said. Allow us to inspect your vessel. Allow us to examine your systems. If what you say is true, you have nothing to hide. And if I refuse? Smiled, showing teeth like knives. Then we will assume you have something to hide, and we will take steps accordingly. The council chamber fell silent, looked around at all the alien faces watching him. They wanted to see what humans were made of. They wanted to see if he would back down. He thought about New Soul Colony. He thought about the Wanderer. He thought about everything they had worked for. You can't inspect the ship, said clearly, but I'll give you copies of all our technical specifications. I'll show you exactly how we did it. Then you can try to do it yourselves. Why would you do that? Asked, surprised. Because I'm not afraid of competition, replied. If you can improve on what we did, great. The more advanced technology in the galaxy, the better, but I don't think you'll find it as easy as you expect. More murmurs from the council. Sat down slowly, his eyes never leaving. The meeting continued for hours with questions and arguments and debates, but had made his point. Humans weren't hiding anything. They weren't cheating. They had simply approached an old problem in a new way. When it was finally over, approached privately. You have made quite an impression, the council speaker said. Some see you as a threat, some see you as an opportunity, but all see you as something new. Be careful of the humans. The galaxy is not always kind to things that are new and different. Thought about that warning during the flight back to New Soul Colony, but he didn't have time to worry about it, because when the Wanderer came into view, Minu was broadcasting an emergency signal. We have a problem, Minu said when reached the bridge. A big one. On the saw 50 warships surrounding the Wanderer. At their center was a massive flagship, 10 times larger than any of the others. It's Minu said. He's demanding we surrender the ship. He says we have 1 hour. Minu stared at the 50 warships on his screen and tried not to panic. He was an engineer, not a soldier. He knew how to build things, how to fix things, how to make things work. He did not know how to fight a war. Attention, human vessel, his voice boomed through the speakers. You have refused to let us inspect your technology. Therefore, we will take it by force. You have 1 hour to abandon ship. After that, we will destroy anyone who remains aboard. Minu's hands were shaking. He looked at the crew around him, 3 engineers, 2 technicians, and 1 scientist. None of them were fighters. They were just people trying to keep a colony alive. Can we contact? One of the engineers asked. He's 3 star systems away, Minu replied. Even if we send a message now, he won't get it for hours, and it would take him days to get back here. So what do we do? Minu looked at the countdown timer had started. 59 minutes until they opened fire. He thought about running. They could take a shuttle and evacuate. Let have the ship. It would be the smart thing to do. But then he thought about working for 4 months straight to build this ship. He thought about growing living metal and making impossible things possible. He thought about New Soul Colony, 5,000 people who needed this ship to survive. We fight, Minu said quietly. Are you crazy? The scientist protested. We're 1 ship against 50. We're not just any ship, Minu replied. He sat down in the captain's chair and began pulling up systems he had helped install but never thought he would use. Built the Wanderer to defend the colony. Let's see if it can defend itself. He started running diagnostics, checking every system. The shields were at full power. The weapons were charged. But there were other systems too, things had installed but never fully explained. Experimental systems, backup systems, systems Minu didn't fully understand. One in particular caught his attention. It was labeled simply Gravity Field Generator Experimental. Had mentioned it once, saying it was something he adapted from the design but hadn't tested properly. Well, Minu thought, now was as good a time as any. The hour passed faster than Minu wanted. When the countdown reached 0, his voice returned. Your time is up, human. This is your last chance. Surrender or die." Minyu's mouth was dry, his heart was pounding, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "This is Minyu of the Wanderer. You want this ship. Come and take it." "So be it." 50 warships opened fire at once. The space around the Wanderer lit up with energy weapons, missiles, and projectiles. It was the kind of firepower that could destroy a small moon. The shields took it all. They flared bright, absorbing the impact, holding firm. The ship shook and alarms blared, but the shields held. "Shield integrity at 93%, one of the technicians reported. Minyu allowed himself a small breath of relief. The shields were holding, but he knew they wouldn't hold forever against this kind of sustained fire. He needed to do more than just defend. He needed to attack. "Target the nearest ship," Minyu ordered. "Fire main cannon." The cannon charged and fired. The bolt of blue energy struck one of its warships directly. The vessel's shields collapsed instantly, and the ship itself was torn apart by the impact. The other ship stopped firing for a moment, surprised by the power of the attack, but was not deterred. "All ships concentrate fire on that vessel's port side shields," he commanded. "Overwhelm them." The fleet repositioned and focused their attack. The port shields began taking much more damage. The integrity dropped to 80%, then 70, then 60. "They're going to break through," the scientist shouted. Minyu's mind raced. He needed something that would change the situation completely, something unexpected. His eyes went back to the experimental gravity field generator. "Everyone hold on," he said, and activated the system. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to bend. The gravity field generator, which had built by combining human quantum processors with gravity manipulation technology, created a localized field of intense gravity. 3 of ships were caught in the field. The gravity increased around them, pulling them together. Their hulls groaned and bent. Their crews screamed. Then, with sounds like thunder, all 3 ships were crushed into balls of twisted metal. The rest of the fleet scattered in panic. No one had expected this. No one had even known this kind of weapon was possible. "What did you do?" roared. "What kind of weapon is that?" Minyu was as shocked as everyone else. He hadn't known the gravity generator would be that powerful, but he wasn't going to let know that. "We have weapons you can't imagine," Minyu said, trying to sound confident. "Leave now or we'll use them again." But was not the kind of being who retreated. "All ships spread out. Don't let them trap you together. Continue the attack." The battle continued for 3 hours. Minyu fired the main cannon again and again, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy vessel. He used the gravity generator twice more, carefully, learning how to control it. The shields held, though they dropped to 40% at one point. 13 of ships were destroyed. 8 more were crippled and drifting. The rest continued fighting, but Minyu could see they were hesitating now. They had come expecting an easy victory. Instead, they were losing. And then arrived. The Wanderer's sensors detected the hyperspace entry 3 seconds before it happened. A small, fast ship emerged from hyperspace at maximum speed, diving into the battle zone. "Minyu, status report." His voice came over the communication system. "We're holding," Minyu replied, feeling a wave of relief at hearing his friend's voice. 13 enemy ships destroyed, shields at 40%. There was a pause. "You destroyed 13 ships. Minyu, you're a genius." "I'm really not. I was just pressing buttons and hoping they worked." Laughed despite the situation. "You're definitely a genius. Hold on, we're coming aboard." The small ship docked with the Wanderer while the battle continued. 2 minutes later and we're on the bridge, taking in the situation. "He hasn't given up," observed, watching's flagship coordinate the attack. "He's lost a quarter of his fleet, but he's still fighting." "What do we do?" asked. Studied the tactical display, thinking. Then he smiled. "We show them what this ship can really do. Minu, you did amazing work, but you were being too gentle. Watch this. He took the captain's chair and began entering commands. The Wanderer's systems responded differently under his hands, moving with a precision that only came from months of intimate knowledge. Broadcast on all frequencies, ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke clearly. You came here to take my ship. You've lost 13 vessels trying. I'm going to give you one more chance to leave. If you don't, I'm going to show you what the Wanderer can do when I'm really trying. You're bluffing, human replied. You don't have the courage to. Fired, but he didn't fire at the ships. He fired at an asteroid 3 kilometers away, a dead rock floating in space near the colony. The main cannon bolt hit the asteroid dead center. The rock exploded into dust, completely vaporized in an instant. There was nothing left but a cloud of particles glowing from the heat. That was one shot on minimum power, said calmly. Imagine what a dozen shots on maximum power would do to your fleet. Imagine what the gravity generator could do if I really wanted to hurt you. Imagine what other systems I haven't even activated yet. He let that sink in for a moment, then continued. You came here thinking humans were weak, thinking we were primitive, thinking we couldn't possibly have real technology. You were wrong. Now you can either leave with what's left of your fleet, or you can stay and find out just how wrong you were. The channel was silent for a long time, waited, his hand hovering over the weapon's controls. Finally spoke. His voice was different now, without the arrogance. You have made your point, human. We will withdraw, but this is not over. The galaxy will not forget what happened here today. Neither will I, replied. His fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace, leaving their damaged ships behind. The battle was over. Minu slumped in his chair, exhausted and shaking. I can't believe we won. You won, corrected. I just showed up at the end. You held them off for 3 hours, Minu. You kept the ship and the colony safe. I was terrified the entire time. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, said. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Over the next few days, the news of the battle spread across the galaxy even faster than before. A human ship had defeated a warlord's fleet. Not just survived, defeated. Ships were destroyed and the mighty was forced to retreat. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 6 different galactic powers sent ambassadors to New Sol Colony, offering alliances, trade agreements, and technology exchanges. 4 others sent warnings, saying that humans with such powerful weapons were a threat that needed to be contained. Spent 3 days in constant meetings with alien representatives, negotiating carefully. She was brilliant at it, using humanity's underdog story to win sympathy while demonstrating that humans were strong enough to be valuable allies. Everything has changed, she told after one particularly difficult meeting. 2 months ago, we were a failing colony that no one cared about. Now, we're at the center of galactic politics. We have options we never dreamed of. Is that good or bad? Asked. Both, admitted. We have opportunities now, but we also have enemies, and we have expectations. Everyone wants to know what humans will do next. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, it wasn't a request. It was a summons, and traveled to the Council world together, with and Minu joining via video link from the Wanderer. The chamber was even more crowded than before. Representatives from species that had never attended a council session were there, all wanting to see what would happen. Council speaker stood and addressed the assembly. We have evaluated the events of the past weeks. We have reviewed the battle data. We have consulted with our military experts and technology specialists, and we have reached a decision. He turned to face directly. The human species is hereby elevated from Tier 5 civilization to Tier 2 civilization status. You are granted full voting rights in this council. You will have access to protected trade routes and diplomatic protections. and you will be held to the same standards and responsibilities as all Tier 2 civilizations." A murmur ran through the chamber. Tier 2 was reserved for species with advanced technology and significant military power. Humans had jumped 3 entire tiers in a matter of weeks. But there was a catch. There was always a catch. "However," continued, "as a condition of this elevation, you must share your hybridization techniques with all Council species. Your method of combining disparate technologies has strategic implications for the entire galaxy. It cannot remain exclusive to one species." Looked at, they had discussed this possibility, nodded slightly. "I'll share some of our techniques," said carefully. "The basic principles of frequency conversion, the methods for interface development, the approaches to materials compatibility. But the most advanced applications, the specific modifications we made to the Wanderer, those stay with us." "That is unacceptable," one of the alien representatives protested. "That's my offer," replied firmly. "We'll help the galaxy advance, but we won't give away everything that makes us competitive. That's not cooperation, that's surrender." Studied him for a long moment. Then surprisingly he smiled. "Well said of the humans. The Council accepts your terms." 6 months had passed since the Council meeting, and New Sol Colony looked completely different. Where there had once been a small settlement struggling to survive, there was now a bustling shipyard. 3 massive construction frames floated in orbit, each one holding a new hybrid ship in various stages of completion. Stood on the observation deck of the Wanderer, watching workers move between the construction sites. Some were human, but many were aliens now, species that had come to learn humanity's approach to engineering. They didn't all get along perfectly, but they were learning to work together. "It's impressive, isn't it?" joined him at the window. She looked different now, more confident. She had published papers on biomechanical integration that were being studied across the galaxy. Several universities had offered her teaching positions, but she had turned them all down. She wanted to stay here, working on the cutting edge. "I never imagined it would grow this fast," admitted. "I just wanted to save the colony." "And you did. You saved it so well that it became something much bigger." That was true. New Sol Colony was now officially New Sol Station, a hub for trade and technology development. Ships from 100 different species stopped here. Students came to study. Engineers came to collaborate. Even some of the remnant had arrived, bringing ancient schematics and knowledge in exchange for help rebuilding their civilization. The 3 new ships were smaller than the Wanderer, but each one was unique. The first used principles from the Wanderer but incorporated technology from 3 different alien species. The second was designed for exploration, with long-range sensors and enhanced life support. The third was purely defensive, built to protect the station from threats. Minyu was in command of that one. After his performance during Satak, no one questioned his ability anymore. He had found his calling. "We have a problem," Minyu's voice came over the communication system. "A big one." And rushed to the command center. On the main screen they saw what had alarmed Minyu. A fleet was approaching the station. Not just any fleet, this one had hundreds of ships, and at its center was a vessel recognized. "His flagship." "He brought friends," Minyu said grimly. "That's not just his fleet. He's got ships from 6 different species. Some of them are council members." Felt his stomach drop. Had spent 6 months building an alliance, bringing together species that feared humanity's rapid rise. Now they were here in force. "Get everyone to battle stations," ordered. "Prepare all 4 ships for combat." 4 ships against hundreds, one of the technicians asked. "Even with our technology, those aren't good odds." "No," agreed, "they're not." Arrived moments later, her face pale. "I just received a transmission from. He's demanding that we hand over all our ships and technology. He says if we don't, he'll destroy the station and everyone on it." "How long do we have?" 2 hours. looked at the tactical display, his mind working through possibilities. 4 ships, even hybrid ships with advanced technology, against hundreds. The math wasn't good. "We need help," said. "From who?" asked. "It would take days for any council forces to get here. We're on our own." But was already working at a console, pulling up communication logs. "Maybe not. Remember those species that came here to study our techniques? Remember the students, the engineers, the collaborators? They're all over the galaxy now, and they all owe us." She began sending out messages, hundreds of them, to every contact they had made over the past 6 months, to former students, to species they had helped, to allies they had made. "Even if they come, they won't get here in time," Minyu pointed out. "Then we buy time," said. "We talk, we negotiate, we do whatever we have to do to delay them." Nodded. "I'll handle the diplomacy. You handle the ships." The next hour was the longest of his life. Talked to, arguing points of law, questioning his authority, demanding that the council be consulted. She was brilliant, buying precious minutes with every word. Meanwhile, prepared the Wanderer for what might be their last battle. He ran diagnostics on every system, checked every weapon, made sure the shields were at maximum capacity. "We're getting responses to our messages," called out. "Ships are coming, but the closest ones are still 90 minutes away." Looked at the countdown. They had 45 minutes left. "It's not enough time," Minyu said quietly. "Then we fight until help arrives," replied. "We've beaten impossible odds before." "Not like this." Was about to respond when something strange appeared on the sensors. Ships were emerging from hyperspace. Not dozens, not hundreds, but they weren't attacking. They were taking defensive positions around the station. "Who are they?" Minyu asked. Checked the IDs. Her eyes went wide. "They're remnant ships, 20 of them. They're hailing us." The showed a commander and being with silver carapace and multiple eyes. "Of the humans," the commander said. "You helped us begin to rebuild our civilization. You shared knowledge that was rightfully ours but that you had earned through your own efforts. The remnant does not forget such debts. We stand with you." More ships arrived. A fleet of small, fast vessels from a species called the... They were traders that New Sol Station had protected from pirates 3 months ago. Then came a group of research vessels from a scientific civilization that had collaborated with. Then more, and more. Within 30 minutes, over 200 ships had arrived. Not all of them were warships. Some were cargo vessels. Some were research ships. Some were barely armed at all. But they were all there, forming a protective barrier around the station. "Attention!" A new voice broadcast on all frequencies. It was Council Speaker himself. "You have violated Council law by threatening a member civilization with unprovoked military action. The ships you have gathered include members of the Council who have acted without authorization. You will stand down immediately or face sanctions from the entire Council." His response was defiant. "The humans are a threat. They advance too quickly. They disrupt the balance of power." "They advance through innovation, not conquest," replied. "They help other species rather than dominating them. They share knowledge rather than hoarding it. If you see that as a threat, perhaps you should examine your own intentions." More ships continued to arrive. Species that humans had helped, taught, collaborated with, or simply treated fairly. Each one added their strength to the defense. Watched in amazement as the fleet around New Sol Station grew to equals force, then exceeded. Within an hour, they were outnumbered 2-1. "We came because you didn't treat us like inferiors," one captain broadcast. "You didn't demand, you didn't conquer, you just helped." "We came because you showed us a better way," another said. "A way to combine what we have instead of fighting over who has more." Watched his advantage disappear. His alliance was fragmenting. Some of his own ships were breaking formation, unwilling to fight against such a coalition. "This isn't over," finally said. "Humans may have won today, but..." Actually, interrupted, I think it is over, not just today. The whole thing. You came here to take our technology by force. You failed. You tried to destroy us because you were afraid of what we represent. You failed again. And you know why? Because we don't see the galaxy the way you do. He gestured at the screen showing the hundreds of allied ships. You see species that need to be controlled. We see partners. You see technology as something to hoard. We see it as something to share. You see power as something you take. We see it as something you earn. Stood up looking directly at through the. You asked the galaxy to choose between your way and ours. They chose. Now go home and think about what that means. For a long moment nothing happened. Then's fleet began to turn away. One by one they jumped to hyperspace, leaving flagship alone. The war leader stared at with pure hatred in his eyes. You may have one human, but you've made a powerful enemy. I'd rather have a powerful enemy than be one, replied. Ship jumped away, and the crisis was over. The celebration lasted 3 days. Ships from across the galaxy sent messages of support. The Council formally elevated humanity to Tier 1 civilization status, the highest rank. New Sol Station became an official neutral meeting ground, where species could come together to collaborate and learn. Stood on the bridge of the Wanderer one last time before stepping down as captain. You would take command now, leading the ship on missions across the galaxy. Had other work to do. Joined him as she always did. What are you thinking about? About that day in the junkyard, said. When sold me this ship and laughed at me. When everyone said it was impossible. When they said humans could never understand advanced technology. And now we're teaching advanced technology to everyone else. He smiled. It's funny how things work out. They walked through the ship one last time, touching the walls that were part human metal and part living compounds. Every system was a collaboration between two ways of thinking. Every solution was born from combining what seemed incompatible. In the engineering bay, a group of students was working on a new project, a hybrid medical system that combined human biological knowledge with alien healing technology. One of the students was human. 2 were. One was from a species didn't even recognize. What are you building? Asked them. The human student looked up, excited. We're trying to create a universal medical scanner that can work on any species. The problem is that every species has different biology, so current scanners only work on one type at a time. But if we combine the technologies, then you can make something new, finished, something better than what came before. Exactly, the student grinned. We learned that from you. And left them to their work and made their way to the observation deck. Through the window, they could see New Sol Station, now orbited by dozens of ships from countless species. The construction frames were building more vessels. The research facilities were full of scientists from across the galaxy. The trade docks were constantly busy. Did you ever imagine this? Asked. When you were buying a junk ship to save a failing colony? Never, admitted. I just wanted to fix something that was broken. I wanted to solve a problem. And you solved it so well that you changed the galaxy. Thought about that. Changed the galaxy. It sounded impossible. But then, everything they had done had sounded impossible at the time. I don't think I changed the galaxy, he said slowly. I just showed it something it had forgotten. What's that? That the best solutions don't come from one species, one technology, one way of thinking. They come from combining different ideas in new ways. They built an amazing ship, but they couldn't finish it with their technology alone. Humans have good ideas, but we can't reach the stars without help from others. Put them together, though. Put everyone together. Then you can build anything. He pointed at the Wanderer, visible through the window. It still looked like a patchwork, a ship held together by impossible connections and unlikely solutions. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. That's what humans brought to the galaxy, said. Not better technology, Not stronger weapons, just a different perspective. We don't see what is and what isn't. We see what could be if we tried something new. Smiled and took his hand. So what do we do now? Build more ships? Actually, I was thinking we should build a school. A real one where any species can come to learn. Where we teach not just the technical skills, but the philosophy behind them. Where we show everyone that the galaxy doesn't have to be divided into the advanced and the primitive, the strong and the weak. A school for hybrid thinking said, I like it. Below them, New Sol Station continued its work. Ships came and went. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked side by side. Technology that shouldn't work together functioned perfectly. And in the center of it all, the Wanderer floated in orbit. A junk ship from a dead civilization, rebuilt by a species everyone had underestimated, now the symbol of a new era. Watched it all and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride exactly, not satisfaction, something else. Hope. Hope that the galaxy had learned what he learned in that junkyard 6 months ago. That sometimes the most valuable things are the ones everyone else overlooks. That sometimes the impossible just needs someone willing to try. That sometimes being underestimated is the biggest advantage you can have. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human domination had never begun. But the age of human collaboration, of hybrid innovation, of combining the old and the new in ways no one had imagined, that age was just getting started. And couldn't wait to see what they would build next.